diving into what are the different ways when it comes to working with kettlebells that we're gonna work with that kettlebell from a single arm position, especially in carries, squats, lunges, right? Because those are the things that are not only gonna be applicable to, really traditional kettlebell training like swings, cleans, presses, but also when we start using it just as a nice tool to offset and load the body for things like squats, lunges, and other types of exercise you might be doing with clients. All right, so first off, this is called the racked position. All right, now in the racked position, this one is beneficial because it is nice and tight and close to our body. All right, now keeping the kettlebell held in this position, beneficial because it can also help to kind of give us an actual external cue and tool to maintain stability in our core and keep us in the right spots, right? Based on whatever exercise we're doing. Whether we just got done with kettlebell clean and we're trying to absorb that into a good position and it keeps us ready to go right into something else, all right? So a couple other things to notice, especially as we start doing things overhead, presses, is my hand position. All right, so a lot of people are gonna wanna kind of hold with that limp wrist so it's not so tough on the forearm. But it's a kettlebell, suck it up, right? It's not gonna be the most comfortable tool, right? If that's a problem, you might wanna just move to a dumbbell altogether. But what you wanna do is you wanna be holding that fist almost like you're gonna throw a punch. So we're getting lots of stiffness there. It is gonna dig into the forearm, but that's also one of the things that just comes along with kettlebell training. So really, honestly, even as I'm just holding this kettlebell right here, I'm really feeling my obliques on this side, my spinal erectors, all my core musculature firing to just keep me in that position. So by itself, just carries right here an awesome exercise for that core stability, that anti-lateral flexion, all right? So that's one piece. This is the rack position. This is where, you may see us going into a single-sided or offset squat. It's in a nice tight position. And when I start to go into presses, right, I'm in here, I'm tense, and it'll create a lot of core tension, and then out into that, what they call J press, and right back in. All right, so a great way to keep it nice and tight and in on the body. So that would be that racked position, okay? Now difference, if I want just to not have to worry so much about the shoulder and everything up here stabilizing, obviously we've got single side, double side farmer's carries. Some people might call this a suitcase carry. Also a great way, and honestly probably the first way that I would throw someone into a single-sided carry. Right, we're just thinking progression. The weight's a little bit lower to the ground, so my axis of rotation's a little bit, it's easier to fight that load. Now also for someone who really wants to start to load heavy for the core, you're gonna be able to hold more down here than you will up top. But either way, I would say this would be the first progression for someone. For a carry, boom, then we would come up here, right, rack position. Now from that rack position, if we want to, not only, right, so here I'm kind of resting on myself, so although I am tense in that upper body, that kind of like upper thorax area, if I want to intensify the strain and the stress, especially on that shoulder blade, right, my scapula to hold in position, I can go from this tight rack position to just this elbows up, right, without really changing my hand held on the kettlebell, boom, firing up. All right, so now we're starting to get into like, almost what they call like a waiter's walk or waiter's carry, right? But the kettlebell is still in somewhat of a rack position. It's more so resting on the forearm. But now, just to go from here, right here, way more stress, right? If you think about it, my shoulder blade has to prevent that rotation that kettlebell is creating. So if you're, looking to not only train the shoulder blade, start to train shoulder health, you definitely want to start with lighter weights. But this is a great way to force that shoulder blade, that scapula, to have to hold itself into place, right? So you're getting some serratus, you're getting all these other muscles firing up. Another great option. Are you gonna be able to load it as heavy? No, but if your goal is more shoulder, scapular, they're doing some walks and carries like that, it's gonna be better. If you wanna go a little heavier overall, you're gonna wanna go from here, all right? The other thing we could do, now again, this is gonna be light with weights. There's definitely a stability, grip strength component. But you'll see some people also doing bottoms up position, right? So if I want to, boom, now fire that kettlebell, and I could start in tight again, right? If I'm in tight with my body like I was in that rack earlier, it's gonna be easier for me to stabilize, but a lot of grip associated here. And the moment I start to go up, back into that same position, now, obviously, it's just gonna be less stable, so it's gonna be a greater stabilization demand. So all things for you trainers to keep in mind, or aspiring trainers to keep in mind when it comes to kettlebell training, You know, there's a lot of different ways we can work with this kettlebell, all amazing, right? We've got the down to the bottom if I'm just trying to work more core and just get someone into that, control that locomotion. Up at the shoulder if I want to bring in more, you know, rib cage, upper thorax stability, getting up more into that scapula, the shoulder blade here. And then of course, also overhead. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to going overhead is just gonna be shoulder flexibility and core stability. Because the thing that we don't really wanna see is someone not being able to quite get it up, right? So they push back and we end up arching that low back. A couple things we can do is first off, just make sure they can get that bicep to or past the ear without poking the ribs out. And then you just might have to cue some, you know, some pelvic stability exercises as well. So a lot of things you want to do, that would be considered probably the most advanced in that overhead, not only because of the stability, but also the shoulder flexibility to get there. So hopefully you guys have a better understanding of some of these different kettlebell grips, you know, because that way when you start to make your way into other exercises, you've got a good idea of, hey, you know what, how should I have them holding that kettlebell and why? And if you guys are interested, we got a kettlebell certification coming up next month. Check it out, we still got some spaces left. I'll see you soon.